Just in case you didn't know what the banks are doing in this economy, here's a short explanation of how the banks have ripped taxpayers off. 1. You collect a crap load of tax dollars meant to stimulate the economy by lending it. 2. Then, instead of lending more money as you're supposed to do, you reduce the credit lines of your current customers, thus leaving your customers with less available credit to fall back on in the case of an emergency. 3. Then, instead of being grateful to the taxpayers for bailing you out, you bend them over a barrel and up their interest rates to usurious levels. I understand that banks have good lobbyists and probably have a lot of people making campaign contributions on their behalf. But there is one thing that these companies do that I have never understood why it is allowed to be legal. If I buy a widget on a credit card at 7% interest, then why is the credit card company allowed to increase the rate on the balance for that widget to whatever it wants? I can understand if the credit card company says, hey, we're going to change your rate on future purchases. But if I buy an item at 7% fixed, I should pay that item off at 7% for the life of the balance. And yes, I'm well aware that deep in the credit card agreements that there are provisions that allow the company to switch you from a fixed rate to a variable rate, or a variable rate to a fixed rate, or to change the percentage that you're paying as well, even on existing balances. However, I'm saying that this should not be legal. And if we are giving these banks money to remain solvent, then we should get to regulate those banks and prevent such usurious practices from taking place. I know that whenever I talk about credit card companies and how awful they are, I will always get someone who comes along and says, well, you shouldn't be using them. Well, that is a lot easier said than done. Take my personal financial situation. My wife and I got married in July of 2007. We paid off all of our credit cards and put 20% down on a house in December of 2007. At the time, we both had jobs, and we were living within our means, and we decided to have a baby, and at the end of March of 2008, our little boy Thomas was conceived. In July, my wife lost her job. So now we were a one-income family who has needed to use credit cards to pay some bills, including some plumbing emergencies that my crooked home warranty company wouldn't cover. More on that in another video. So now, after all my financial problems, how does my credit card treat me as a loyal customer who has always paid his bill on time and in accordance to the policy agreement? They eliminated one of my credit cards altogether that I was keeping open in the case of an emergency, and on another one, they increased my rate. And to make matters worse, I never got notification in the mail that they were increasing my rate. They claimed that they sent it, but I never received it. So by the time that I found out, it was too late and I couldn't freeze the balance at the old rate. And when I called to ask them to make an exception and say, look, here's a mistake that happened, why don't you be fair and be nice and be reasonable in this economy and allow me to return it back to the old rate and freeze it in, they claimed that they could not do anything. This, of course, is a lie, because they could have done something if they had wanted to. They were just unwilling to do anything. So if I was a congressman, this is the legislation that I would put forward. A, I would require that all changes to the credit card agreement shall be required to be sent via registered mail in a separate mailer that is clearly marked as being a change to the agreement. This way there can be no question as to whether or not the credit card holder actually received it in the mail. B, changes to the credit card agreement shall only apply to future purchases made with the card. Old purchases shall be required to remain at the effective rate at the time of purchase. C, after paying the minimum payment, the card holder shall get to choose which balance he wishes to pay first. None of this, the lower interest rate balance gets paid off first so we can keep compounding the interest on the higher rate balances. D, any credit card company who accepted a stimulus payment shall be required to lower current interest rates on all credit cards currently in good standing or in good standing at the beginning of when the stimulus package was awarded to 7.99% fixed, if not less. This rate should be permanent as long as the cardholder remains in good standing. Greed from the banking industry has helped cause this financial meltdown. These predatory lending practices need to be stopped, and Congress needs to do something about this now. I have written both my senators, my congressman, another congressman from my state, Senator Reid, and Speaker Pelosi. I suggest that you all do the same, because something needs to be done about this immediately.